Hello, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to answer a question that came from a woman inside the Good Human University, and that is, how do we develop personality? How do we develop personality? Are we born with it? Do we get it because we were the youngest of 5 kids? Do we get it from being the oldest of 5 kids? I'm going to unpack this from a trained trauma perspective, meaning it will not be linear, it will be eye-opening and broad. So make sure you're subscribed to my channel and let's get into it. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because there is so much hype around personality tests right now. As I'm filming this in August 2021, there's value in personality tests, and it also doesn't take on the perspective of neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is basically our body and brain's ability to change itself, whether it rewires in a way that is prosperous and helpful and expansive, or rewires to survive and adapt to the environment. The personality tests generally leave neuroplasticity out of this. How can you leave science out of something that is so broadly known, and that is personality tests? I'm not going to name any names, but we all know what I'm talking about. I'm here to play devil's advocate, or shall I say neuroplasticity advocate, and help you understand that we as humans are much more multidimensional than a yes or no question on a personality test. Let me ask you this. When you are invited to a party, who are you? What person are you? Are you the person that walks in the door and says a big, "Hey, I'm so happy to see you. Thank you for inviting me." You give the host a bouquet of flowers. You do a kiss on the cheek, and you go around to everyone else there and give them a little peck on the cheek. Are you that person? Comment below, I want to know. Or are you the person that doesn't even end up going to the party, stays at home, would rather be watching, your favorite Netflix series with some popcorn and your dog or your cat right there giving a little belly scratch, and you know what, maybe you just made up an excuse or said that you would prefer to stay in and have a self-care night, and you never actually go to the party. Or maybe the truth is that you had too many butterflies and social anxiety in your stomach, and that's the real reason that you didn't end up going to the party. Are you that person? Comment below, I want to know. There's no judgment. Personally, I have been both of those people at different points in my life, and so there is no judgment here. And the third one is, are you that person where you walk into the party and you give a little wave to the host and you beeline to the beverage station, whatever that is, the wine bar, and give yourself some social lubricant before you, step out and introduce yourself to that, attractive person across the way that you don't know, or maybe it's just people in general you don't know and you feel like you need some social lubricant to feel more at ease to connect. Comment below, I want to know, who are you in the party, because these are all personality types or expressions of who we are, to put in a more accurate and expansive way. So comment below and let's move on. If you know me well, you know that I always talk about way back when we were born, because we're not supposed to remember that, yet it has a huge impact on how we carry ourselves throughout life. Like one of my teachers always says, Stephen Porges, the first 9 months of life, you're still in utero, and that time in utero is the most important time of your life, because neurobiologically you're setting up the platforms for the rest of your life. Yet most of us have no idea what that experience was like. It's normal not to know what happened at birth, but here's the thing, here's why it's so important, especially in this video when we're talking about how do we develop personality. When we're born, we pop out of the womb and we have two selves, two aspects of who we are already. One of those aspects is our true self, our spirit, our soul, our divine essence, if you will. That's one self. The other self is a survival self. Our survival self is the part of us that has possibly already in utero and at birth had to adapt to the environment, the stressful experiences, right? So if we hear stories, some little babies are born and they've already been through some stuff. Maybe their umbilical cord is wrapped around the neck, maybe they're stillborn, maybe the fluid in the uterus has dried up and there needs to be an emergency process to, be welcomed into the world. Those are all good reasons to develop a survival self in order to survive. Take that first breath and continue on in life. Most people I work with have experienced at least some stress there, whether it's the things I mentioned or something maybe less stressful or just different. You have that survival self, and that survival self, depending on your experience in utero from conception to birth, first 5 years of your life is extremely important to developing, that survival self. If we had, attentive caregivers and secure attachment and availability from our caregivers emotionally, physically, then, the survival self won't really be developed, but the true self will really have had the time and space to develop, right? And so if we look at the survival self and the true self, if we had everything we needed growing up, those two selves will be pretty integrated. But if there is childhood or developmental trauma, adversities, hardship, where the survival self really had to find a way to survive, that survival self from where I sit, and many of my teachers will say that is where personality develops, from that survival self. So it doesn't have to be anything absolutely tragic. It can be so simple and common as being, the youngest of 5 siblings. And we're all at the dinner table, and being the youngest of 5 siblings, what do you think the survival self of that youngest sibling would have to do to get their needs met, to get their voice heard, right? They would need to be able to project their voice, have probably developed, quote unquote, a big personality, right? I say this in quotes because it's the survival self coming through. And just to be clear, there's no right and wrong when it comes to personalities. It is simply, there's always a light and a dark to these aspects of who we are, right? So let's say you're the youngest of a lot of siblings, there's underneath all of that the voice projection and the big personality, and maybe you're the funny one because that's how you attract attention and hold the attention from all these older people that have much more experience than you. You're funny, so people are magnetized towards your life force expression, right? So there's that, and then on the flip side of that, it's underneath, it can be so sad that that's what had to be, the effort it takes to be funny or to kind of put on a show, underneath that is oftentimes sadness and the fear of not being seen, the fear of being rejected, the fear of feeling separate or other than. I can relate. I can definitely relate to being in that position. And, some people say, oh, it's the middle child. Others will say, as being the oldest, it's like having all the weight of the world on that person's shoulders. So I'm just using the sibling lineup as an example in this. But truly, our personality develops from, yes, our essence and our soul, our gifts, our talents, who we truly are, and the parts of us that we've had to adapt to, be loved and stay connected, stay in connection. And so another aspect of personality is that when we bring in neuroplasticity, is that as we heal these parts of ourselves, we may find that our personality changes. Right? If you answered yes to the person going into the party and being the life of the party, right? And then maybe you do some healing work with a somatic practitioner around this, or take one of my programs, then you may notice, what are my needs in this moment? Maybe I need to stay home and give my dog some belly rubs, or just call a friend instead of going out, right? Our needs will shift, or it can be the opposite. Maybe if you're used to staying at home, reaching out for that social connection is something that you are more willing and open to explore now. Coming back to neuroplasticity, personality type is not a finite, definite thing. Many psychological practices from way back to Freud and whatnot will say that it's personality is a fixed thing. You're either an introvert, an extrovert, black or white. This is not true when we look at humanity from a multidimensional and, most importantly, trauma-educated perspective. Because when we heal, we change. When we heal, we take on who we truly want to be. Another part of this is, have you ever had someone tell you you're good at something? Like you're good at spelling or you're good at swimming? And then you internalize that and, oh, I have to be good at this. Or maybe you are really good at it and you did it and you practice and you became a professional or at a high level, right? And that develops into personality. So it's quite complex. It's not so linear. Another aspect of that is, have you ever been told that you're bad at something? Or you're not good enough at something? I used to work at a senior's home, and there was this gentleman, I'll never forget this, he was probably like 86, and there was a choir practice going on in another room, and I asked him, I said, hey Hans, why aren't you in there singing with everyone? Because he was always a very social butterfly. And he comes up to me, this is an 86-year-old man, and he tells me, who by the way, was like a high-level athlete and played with the BC Lions. I think was their coach at one point. Maybe delete that out. I don't know if I can say that on this channel, but he was a high-performing athlete, and he comes over to me and he says, when I was 5 years old, my singing teacher told me I had a terrible voice and I could not sing. So he embodied that comment from his teacher when he was 5 years old. This man was 86 years old, and he still believed that about himself, and it internalized that teacher's comment. He internalized that, and that's how he saw himself. He genuinely thought he was a terrible singer, which he told me that day. And then we had to do some repair work together, because who cares if he's a terrible singer or, tone deaf? It's about having fun and being part of it. So that is a example. And I challenge you and invite you to see for yourself where in your life, or who in your life has told you, you are this, you are that, or you are not this, you are not that. What are those stories? Who are you? The big question. And most importantly, coming back to neuroplasticity, you do have the ability to change yourself, to change the way you are. So no matter what any personality test says, or anyone has ever said to you in the past about who you are as a human, just encouraging you to take that as a grain of salt. And it's truly up to you to embody your true essence. Heal your past traumas. That's what I'm all about. And then take the gems, because there's always gems from the hardships, and carry on in your truth. So I really hope this opened up your eyes to how personality is developed, coming back to true self and survival self, and the integration that can happen as you heal more and more. You become whole. That's what wholeness is all about, is integrating those parts. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that things like multiple personality disorders, if we look at multiple personality disorders from this lens, I challenge you to see, like, as a survival self, there can be more than one self. There can be 16 selves in that survival self, right? And when we look at the history of a human as such, more times than not, there have been good reasons why different survival selves have had to come in for support and survival. So, thank you so much for being here. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and make sure you stick around and watch my other videos. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you very, very soon.